Falcon Lair, Rudolph Valentino. High above Benedict Canyon, on a winding road veiled by cypress and mist, stood a mansion built for a man the world called the Great Lover. Falcon Lair was not just a home. It was a monument to the mystery of Rudolph Valentino, Hollywood's first true romantic idol. But the story of this house would soon become one of longing, loss, and whispers that never left its walls. Rudolph Valentino arrived in America as an Italian immigrant in the 19-teens, chasing dreams that seemed impossibly distant. By the year 1921, he was a global phenomenon, the dark-eyed hero of the chic, the silent era's answer to desire itself. Women fainted at his premieres, men copied his style. The studios crowned him the Latin lover, and in his brief lifetime, he became a symbol of the intoxicating power of film itself. At the height of his fame, Valentino purchased a Spanish-style mansion perched in the Hollywood Hills. He named it Falcon Lair, inspired by a novel he loved, and filled it with Moorish arches, velvet drapes, and the scent of imported roses. Here he entertained the stars of the silent screen, Gloria Swanson, Paula Negri, and even the Prince of Wales. But fame, as Valentino would discover, is a fragile gift. By 1926, the actor's health was failing. While on a publicity tour in New York, he fell gravely ill and never returned to his beloved Falcon Lair. His passing at just 31 years old sent shockwaves through the world. Crowds of thousands flooded the streets to mourn him. Back in Los Angeles, Falcon Lair fell silent. Paula Negri, heartbroken, visited the empty mansion and ordered flowers to be placed there every week, a ritual that continued for years. A newspaper headline from August of 1926 read simply, "Valentino is dead. Millions weep for the screen's great lover." Falcon Lair still stands today, though time has altered its face. Its gardens are overgrown, and the laughter that once filled its courtyards has long faded. Yet under the California sun, the shadows still remember him, the man who turned silent film into passion and whose home became his eternal legend. Marion Davies Beach House. Marion Davies. It glittered like a palace on the Pacific for those who drove along the California coast in the early 1930s. The site of Marion Davies Beach House in Santa Monica was pure Hollywood spectacle, a sprawling oceanfront mansion where laughter echoed over the waves. But behind the champagne and the lights, it was also the home of a woman whose true talent was often hidden in the shadow of a powerful man. Marion Davies began her career as a Ziegfeld Follies dancer in New York before moving west to try her luck in motion pictures. Her charm, comic timing, and easy grace quickly made her a favorite of audiences. But history would remember her most as the longtime companion of media tycoon William Randolph Hearst. Hearst adored her. In 1926, he built her a seaside estate that rivaled any royal residence, 34 bedrooms, marble floors, gold leaf ceilings, and gardens that seemed to spill into the ocean. The estate cost more than $1 million, a staggering fortune at the time, and became known simply as Marion Davies Beach House. The parties there were legendary. Guests included Charlie Chaplin, Clark Gable, Greta Garbo, and a young John F. Kennedy. There were orchestras that played until dawn, endless champagne, and a view that captured everything glamorous about California living. Yet, for all the joy on display, Marion's life wasn't without sorrow. Many dismissed her success, claiming her fame came only from Hearst's influence. But those who worked with her knew better. She was funny, generous, and deeply devoted to her friends. As the Great Depression hit and Hearst's empire began to crumble, the golden age of their world slowly faded. The lavish parties became smaller. The mansion, once full of music, grew quieter. By the time Hearst passed away in 1951, the estate had already begun to decay. Marion sold it soon after, and for decades it stood as a fading monument to the excess and charm of old Hollywood. In the 1990s, what remained was restored and open to the public as the Annenberg Community Beach House, a place where the echoes of her laughter still seem to linger. Marion once said with a smile, "I never had a chance to play a normal girl on the screen, but I tried to live like one by the sea." Her beach house remains one of the last surviving testaments to the glamour of that era. Though the parties ended long ago, the Pacific still washes against the same sands, whispering the name of the woman who made Hollywood's shore shimmer. Pickfair Estate, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. They were the king and queen of silent film, and Pickfair was their castle. From its gates in Beverly Hills, the laughter of Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, and the Gishes once floated through the night. But even fairy tales fade, and the story of Pickfair would end not in celebration, but in quiet ruin. In the early 1920s, Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks were Hollywood's first true power couple. Pickford, known worldwide as America's sweetheart, had risen from Nickelodeon's to become one of the most beloved actresses of her time. Fairbanks, the dashing swashbuckler of The Mark of Zorro and Robin Hood, embodied the adventurous spirit of silent cinema. When they married in the year 1920, their union captured headlines around the world. Together, they bought a hunting lodge high in Beverly Hills and transformed it into a palace. They called it Pickfair, a fusion of their names, and soon the very symbol of Hollywood itself. Inside its walls, Pickfair became the beating heart of early Hollywood. The couple hosted dinners where the world's most famous faces gathered, Chaplin at the piano, Albert Einstein marveling at the grandeur, and studio moguls toasting to the future of film. Reporters called it Hollywood's White House. In those days, to receive an invitation to Pickfair was to have truly arrived. But as the years rolled into the 1930s, the silent era faded, and so did their marriage. The pressures of fame, long separations, and the arrival of sound and cinema began to pull them apart. Fairbanks sought new adventures abroad, while Pickford withdrew into the estate's silence. Their fairy tale ended with divorce in the year 1936, and Pickfair became her private kingdom, a symbol of a past she could never reclaim. Mary Pickford lived there until her passing in the late 1970s. After her death, the house stood as a ghost of another age, until it was demolished in the year 1990 to make way for a new mansion. Once, when asked what Pickfair meant to her, Pickford replied softly, "It was more than a home, it was the world we built together." Today, the original Pickfair is gone, but in the memory of old Hollywood, it remains eternal. The dream that built a castle, and the castle that vanished with the dream. Château Marmont, the temporary home of many legends. Perched above Sunset Boulevard like a French chateau transported to the Hollywood Hills, stood a fortress of secrets, a place where stars could vanish behind velvet curtains and reappear on screen as if nothing had happened. For nearly a century, the Château Marmont has been both sanctuary and stage, a place where legends lived, loved, and hid from the world that made them famous. When the Château Marmont opened in the year 1929, it was designed as luxury apartments, a quiet escape from the chaos of early Hollywood. But when the Great Depression struck, it was transformed into a hotel, one that quickly became a refuge for actors seeking privacy from studio gossip and press intrusion. Its thick walls and Gothic architecture gave it an air of mystery. Within a decade, it had hosted nearly every major name in the Golden Age: Greta Garbo seeking solitude, Howard Hughes renting entire floors for secrecy, and Jean Harlow sharing quiet dinners far from the studio lot. In an age when the studios controlled everything, image, contracts, even marriages, the chateau was freedom. It was where screenwriters wrote their best lines, where musicians composed late into the night, and where stars could finally breathe. It wasn't just a hotel, it was a haven where the masks of Hollywood came off. Yet with freedom came fragility. The chateau witnessed heartbreak, scandal, and sorrow, though the walls never spoke. Over the decades, it became a mirror of Hollywood itself, beautiful, haunted, and timelessly magnetic. In the 1950s, it sheltered stars whose careers were fading. In the 1960s, it hosted a new wave of dreamers chasing the same uncertain promise. Though many legends have since passed through its halls, the spirit of those who found solace there remains. One old manager famously said, "If you must misbehave, do it at the Château Marmont." Even today, the hotel stands as a relic of another era, its lights flickering over sunset like a beacon of nostalgia. Within its walls, echoes of Garbo's footsteps, the soft hum of a piano, and the whispers of stories untold still linger, reminding us that even the most glamorous lives needed a place to hide. Jean Harlow's Palm Avenue home. It was a house wrapped in white walls and whispered rumors. Behind those doors lived a young woman the world called the Platinum Blonde, Hollywood's first true bombshell. But Jean Harlow's Palm Avenue home would become more than a sanctuary. It would become the silent witness to the brief, blazing life of a woman who defined an era. Jean Harlow was just a teenager when she was discovered on the set of a Howard Hughes film in the late 1920s. Her pale hair, porcelain skin, and disarming confidence made her the new face of glamour. By the early 1930s, she had become one of MGM's brightest stars, captivating audiences in films like Red Dust and Dinner at 8. Off-screen, however, Harlow longed for normalcy. In 1932, she moved into a modest but elegant White House at 512 North Palm Avenue in Beverly Hills, a place she hoped would give her peace away from studio lights. It wasn't as grand as Pickfair or Falcon Lair, but to Harlow, it was home. Inside, she entertained close friends, Clark Gable among them, and doted on her small circle of loved ones. She decorated the home herself, filling it with flowers and bright furnishings. To her, it represented the future she was building beyond the camera's reach. Neighbors recalled seeing her laughing in the garden, walking barefoot through the grass, far from the image MGM had crafted. But John's story would take a heartbreaking turn. In the mid-1930s, her health began to fail suddenly while filming Saratoga. The glamorous world that had adored her watched in disbelief as one of its brightest lights went dim. She passed away in her Palm Avenue home at just 26 years old. The tragedy shocked the film industry. Fans gathered outside her gates, leaving flowers that blanketed the sidewalk. MGM halted production for days in mourning. For years afterward, the house stood quietly, a place locals spoke of in hushed tones as though the walls still carried her laughter. A Los Angeles Times reporter once wrote, "Jean Harlow's home glows with the warmth of her spirit, a light that refuses to fade, even in her absence." Today, the Palm Avenue home still stands, its white facade unchanged. It remains one of Beverly Hills' most poignant landmarks, a reminder that behind every dazzling star once lived a real, gentle soul who simply wanted peace. The Garden of Allah Hotel, silent gatherings of Hollywood royalty. There was a time when you could walk into a small courtyard off Sunset Boulevard and find the entire golden age gathered around a pool. Writers, stars, and dreamers, all under one name, whispered with affection and scandal alike, the Garden of Allah. It wasn't a mansion in the hills, but it was home to more legends than any palace could hold. The story began with silent film star Alla Nazimova, one of the most celebrated actresses of the 1910s. In 1919, she built a beautiful Spanish-style villa on Sunset Boulevard. It was a private refuge filled with art, gardens, and conversation, a place for creative souls to escape the pressures of the studios. By the mid-1920s, after Nazimova's film career declined, she converted the estate into a hotel. Thus was born the Garden of Allah Hotel, named both for herself and the mystical novel The Garden of Allah. It quickly became the beating heart of Hollywood's bohemian elite. From the 1930s through the 1950s, its cabanas and bungalows hosted names that would define cinema and literature alike: F. Scott Fitzgerald, Dorothy Parker, Humphrey Bogart, Greta Garbo, and Errol Flynn. Nights there were filled with laughter, impromptu poetry readings, and stories traded like currency. Fitzgerald worked on The Last Tycoon from one of its bungalows. Parker wrote her biting wit into the Hollywood air. It was a community of brilliance and imperfection, where fame and failure mingled without judgment. But time, as always, changed everything. By the late 1950s, the garden's glow began to fade. The glamour of the old studio system was giving way to a new Hollywood, one of television and suburban life. In 1959, the property was sold and demolished to make way for a bank. The pool where legends once gathered was filled in, the laughter erased. Writer Robert Benchley once quipped, "The Garden of Allah is the only place where you can fall asleep famous and wake up forgotten, and somehow it feels just right." Nothing remains of the garden today but memories and photographs. Yet its legacy endures as a symbol of Hollywood's most human side, where stars could forget their fame and simply live, if only for a night. Frank Sinatra's Twin Palms Estate. In the desert heat of Palm Springs, two tall palm trees stood side by side, their shadows stretching across the sand like sentinels. Between them rose a house of glass and steel, sharp angles and open skies. It was called Twin Palms, and it belonged to the man whose voice defined a generation, Frank Sinatra. This was not just a home, it was a reflection of an era when music, architecture, and fame collided in perfect rhythm. By the late 1940s, Frank Sinatra was already a household name, a crooner with blue eyes and a voice that could melt any stage light. But fame came with pressure, and Sinatra sought refuge far from Hollywood's relentless demands. In 1947, he commissioned modernist architect E. Stewart Williams to design a desert retreat in Palm Springs, sleek, minimalist, and elegant. The result was Twin Palms, named for the pair of trees that stood in front of the house like loyal companions. Twin Palms became Sinatra's escape and his stage. The home's piano-shaped swimming pool reflected the evening stars, while music drifted through the desert air from late-night gatherings of Hollywood's elite. Guests included Humphrey Bogart, Judy Garland, and even Ava Gardner, the actress who would become both his muse and his heartbreak. It was at Twin Palms that Sinatra's personal and professional worlds intertwined. Between records and rehearsals, the home became the backdrop for moments of triumph, reconciliation, and creative rebirth. But as the 1950s dawned, Sinatra's fortunes took a sudden dip. The music charts grew cold, and his marriage to Ava Gardner crumbled. The laughter faded from the desert nights. For a while, Twin Palms stood silent, the reflection of a man caught between his past and his comeback. Then, like the desert sun rising after a storm, Sinatra's career reignited with his Oscar-winning role in From Here to Eternity in 1953. Though he eventually sold Twin Palms, it remained forever linked to his legend, the place where he confronted both loss and renewal. Architect E. Stewart Williams later said, "Frank wanted something simple, modern, a house that breathed with the desert, and somehow it became a part of him." Today, Twin Palms still stands, restored, silent, elegant. When the wind moves through the palms, you can almost hear the faint echo of Sinatra's voice carried on the desert air. Smooth, resilient, and timeless as the house he left behind. Greystone Mansion, the Doheny legacy. High above Beverly Hills, hidden among manicured gardens and towering cypress trees, stands a mansion that feels more like a myth than a memory. Its corridors echo with wealth, ambition, and tragedy. This is Greystone Mansion, built not for a movie star, but for one of Los Angeles's most powerful families whose story would rival any Hollywood screenplay. The year was 1928 when oil tycoon Edward L. Doheny, one of the richest men in America, gifted the mansion to his son, Edward Ned Doheny Jr. Designed in the Tudor Revival style, Greystone cost over $3 million, an astronomical sum at the time. Its grand staircase, 46,000 square feet of marble floors and sweeping terraces reflected not just money, but a father's wish to secure his family's future. Though the Dohenyes weren't actors, their lives became part of the Hollywood legend. The mansion itself soon appeared in countless films and television shows, from There Will Be Blood to The Big Lebowski, becoming a character all its own. When the Dohenyes moved in, their estate became the envy of Beverly Hills society. Lavish gatherings filled the halls with laughter, music, and the aroma of imported roses. Yet beneath the luxury, tension stirred. The elder Doheny was embroiled in the infamous Teapot Dome scandal, a political corruption case that cast a long shadow over the family name. Then, in 1929, tragedy struck. Ned Doheny and his friend and assistant, Hugh Plunkett, were both found dead inside the mansion under mysterious circumstances. The details remain unclear to this day, one of Los Angeles's earliest and most haunting scandals. The Doheny family soon moved away, leaving behind the grand house and its ghosts. Over the years, Greystone changed hands, eventually becoming property of the city of Beverly Hills. Today, it serves as a public park and filming location, but the weight of its history never left. A headline from the Los Angeles Times in 1929 read, "Mystery at Doheny Estate, Tragedy Shatters Beverly Hills." Walk its empty halls today, and you can still feel the tension between beauty and sorrow. Greystone stands as both masterpiece and monument, a reminder that even the grandest homes can't protect their owners from fate. Jane Mansfield's Pink Palace. From the street, it looked like a dream in pastel, a sprawling mansion glowing in every shade of pink. To fans of 1950s Hollywood, it wasn't just a house, it was Jane Mansfield's fairy tale kingdom. But behind the pink fountains, heart-shaped pools, and glittering chandeliers lay a story of ambition, heartbreak, and the fleeting nature of fame. Jane Mansfield burst onto the Hollywood scene in the mid-1950s, a striking blonde bombshell with both brains and charisma. She wasn't just an actress, she was a phenomenon. With her wit, charm, and undeniable stage presence, she became one of 20th Century Fox's brightest stars, appearing in films like The Girl Can't Help It and Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter? At the height of her fame, she purchased a mansion on Sunset Boulevard for $76,000 and transformed it into the legendary Pink Palace, a home that mirrored her vibrant persona. Every room, from the velvet-lined walls to the pink champagne fountain, reflected her playful spirit. The Pink Palace quickly became one of Hollywood's most recognizable landmarks. It was more than a home, it was a statement. Jane filled it with custom furniture, mirrored ceilings, and a heart-shaped swimming pool inscribed with her name. She hosted endless parties where stars, musicians, and journalists mingled under the glow of pink lights. Visitors described the house as whimsical and otherworldly, a fantasy born from the optimism of post-war Hollywood. But fame, as always, was fragile. By the early 1960s, Jane's film offers had dwindled, and her marriage to Mickey Hargitay had ended. The Pink Palace became quieter, its once lively rooms echoing with memories. In 1967, Jane's life came to a tragic end on a highway outside New Orleans. The Pink Palace left behind stood as a monument to her dazzling but brief career. Over the following decades, the house changed owners several times, including singer Engelbert Humperdinck, before being demolished in the year 2002. Jane once told a reporter, "I don't see why a house can't be as pretty as a movie set. After all, it's where your real story plays out." The Pink Palace may be gone, but its image endures, shimmering in old photographs and the dreams of a Hollywood that once believed everything could be beautiful and forever. Norma Shearer's Beverly Hills residence. Long before Beverly Hills became the capital of celebrity real estate, one of its earliest icons, Norma Shearer built a mansion that symbolized both grace and quiet power. It was not ostentatious like Pickfair or wild like Falcon Lair. Instead, it was elegant, restrained, a reflection of a woman who defied Hollywood's rules and became its first lady. Norma Shearer rose to fame in the late 1920s as one of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's top stars. Intelligent, commanding, and charismatic, she was far more than a typical leading lady. Married to MGM production chief Irving Thalberg, she inhabited a world of prestige and influence. Their Beverly Hills mansion, located at 707 Oceanfront, became a symbol of their power couple status, where art directors, producers, and stars gathered beneath chandeliers to discuss cinema's golden future. Inside the residence, every detail reflected Thalberg's refined taste and Shearer's independent flair. The gardens were manicured to perfection. The marble halls echoed with piano music and laughter from dinner parties. Norma's walk-in closets housed the gowns of a Hollywood queen, while her study, unusual for a woman at the time, was filled with scripts and personal notes on character psychology. Here, she prepared for roles that broke boundaries, women with agency and complexity, in films like The Divorcee and A Free Soul. The mansion was not merely a home, it was a stage for her evolution. When Irving Thalberg died unexpectedly in 1937, the mansion became a place of solitude. Norma, heartbroken but unbroken, continued to act, earning praise for her resilience and strength. But over time, as the studio system changed, she quietly withdrew from Hollywood. In the decades that followed, her home became a symbol of both love and legacy, the private world of a woman who helped shape the art of screen acting before fading gracefully from the spotlight. The house still stands today, restored and preserved, a whisper of the golden age among modern facades. Norma once said, "A home should be more than beauty. It should have the courage to tell the truth about who you are." Her mansion did exactly that. It wasn't the loudest or the largest, but like Norma Shearer herself, it possessed quiet depth and an elegance that time could never erase. If you could step back into one of these homes for a single evening, which mansion would you choose? Tell us below.